Welcome to those who are new to the Biology is Life and to those who have joined us previously. Welcome back. I am Boon Lee. I'm a postgrad researcher in Monash University, Malaysia campus. And I'm your host of today's session. So today's webinar is supported by the Petridist, Mabic, GIST, Biomed KL, the other school, and Surico. The speaker will speak on his topic of interest for roughly 15 to 20 minutes, and then we'll move on a interactive fun session, and then the last it will be a room tour and also followed by Q&A session for the remaining time. Dear viewers, do fill in attendance form for the e-certificates in the link provided in the comment sections, and then the viewers is reminded to post your questions and doubts in the comment section anytime during the session. Now, allow me to introduce our speakers of this sessions, Mr. Mr. Fabian, the research assistant in Surico, Bali, Indonesia. He will be bringing us to a tour to Indonesia, AR and farmer. I will allow Fabian to further introduce himself and dive right into the topic of today. So, Fabian, the mic is yours.
Hello, everyone. My name is Fabian. I am born and raised in Indonesia, and I am a research assistant here at Sherco. I primarily do more research projects and research papers writing, but more recently I've been going to the field a bit more, meeting farmers, educating farmers, and also creating biogas digesters, which will be the main topic of today. Um, I it seems like I cannot go full screen the slide, so I hope everything is still readable. There's a lot that I'd like to cover in general about this topic, biogas digesters and renewable energy, clean energy, all these umbrella terms. However, I'll try to focus more on the main overarching topics, the problems that can be applicable to other contexts. So for you to see this as a lessons learned from the Indonesian context, there's a bunch of things I'd like to go into more detail, but I can leave them question and answers for future. So I'll try to be quick. I have more or less 15-20 minutes. Thank you for sparing your time on a Sunday afternoon for a I don't want to call this a lecture or workshop, but for a sharing session. So I'll explain again what Sherco is, and then this presentation titled that Biogas Digesters for Rural Households. So let me start with about us. So what is Sherco? And the easiest way to explain us is that we are split into three departments that are synergizing um, vertically. We call it vertical integration. We have a think tank, do tank, and a B tank. And as you may all know what a think tank is, the think tank is a research organization. So Sherco, we're based off as a think tank, a research organization focused on climate change adaptation and mitigation. But we do not want to focus purely because we do not want to focus on the theoretical side. We created a do tank, which is a direct translation of our research result. We have knowledge about climate change, why not use it? And that's where Do Tank is born. And this is where we engage directly with farmers, giving them education on climate change. This is where we create renewable energy, such as the biogas digesters, and where we create a circular business out of their commodities, which is coffee and chocolate. So far, these are the farmers that we target. And then the B tank is, as you maybe self-explanatory. The B tank, we want to be a good example. We want to create this example of a sustainable company spreading knowledge. And so this is where our educational programs and workshops come in. So right this second, what we're doing right now in this online event is what we classify as our B tank activity. So Sherco, there's quite a lot to explain about us, but this is the best way to think about it. I think do B tank. And I am part of the think tank and the do tank and I guess the B tank now. So let's get right into it. The main question here: what is why biogas? Why Sherco is doing research on biogas? Why do we care about biogas in the first place? And so let's start with what how we got into the biogas. So in 2015, we worked on a research project, 4-year research, 2 4-year research projects from European familiar with it. And the two research is called Green Wind and Transrisk. This two research projects aim to find an alternative and renewable energy for Indonesia, what's the most feasible and favorable. And as you can see from the titles, it's for climate resilience, for win-win solutions. And so from this, we ended up with understanding why biogas is important. So to give you a bit of more background, currently 30% of Indonesians are still relying on rural households firewood stoves or um, as their main source of energy for cooking. So 30%, it's already a big number. And then if you know the Indonesian population, to illustrate, there are more farmers or more Indonesians who use firewood than there are French people. So it's quite a big number. Um, However, by using firewood stoves, not only are we degrading the environment, the indoor air pollution causes about 165,000 premature deaths every year. So it's quite a critical health issue as well. Now, this is so. Say we're talking about rural now. What about the urban households? They're not facing this issue. Maybe not. And so now let me talk about more about finance and resource allocation in the country. So LPG, um, long story short, we don't produce LPG. Indonesia imports a lot of LPG from, for example, Singapore. Um, the Indonesian government invested more than 7 billion rupiahs for LPG subsidy. I think I quickly looked this up, and this is about 2 million Malaysian ringgits. Someone can confirm that when he may type in the chat if you find a different number. So 7 billion rupiah is invested for LPG subsidy. However, this number is equated to the total energy budget from the Ministry of Energy in 2019, meaning they have 7 billion rupees to invest for energy and they invest it all in subsidizing LPG. However, still a lot of households lack access to clean energy. So the question is, where did the money go? Or who received access to this LPG? Subsidies are supposed to be given to the lower class or people with a lesser income. However, in this case, the LPG was distributed to pretty much anyone, or more in the middle classes, to the people that don't need it. So there's a big gap between energy access, and there's this thing called the trilemma index which is the biggest problem with energy in the country is that we need energy equity, energy accessibility, and renewable energy. So ones that provide social, economic, and environmental benefits. That is what we need. So to illustrate in this background, I want to emphasize our necessity to invest on renewable energy more than just better for the environment, but also as a social cause because this energy is more than just an environmental issue; it's a social justice issue. So in the research that I mentioned, the trans risk and green one, we were identifying okay, what other options of energy can we invest and look into? We found three top ones that make it to the list, which is biogas, biosynthetic gas, and bioethanol. And as I highlighted here, biogas became the most feasible and favorable option. And this is due to a lot of reasons from politics, from social and technical. Biosynthetic gas technical part isn't as user friendly, and bioethanol is a lot of complications in the bureaucracy. And this has a lot to do with the interplay between the producers, the sugarcane factories, the and the fuel industry because there's a big monopoly. Anyway, I'm not going to talk about the entire stakeholders of Indonesian involved in energy. Let's just focus more again on why biogas is such an interesting technology. So so um, let me review what biogas is and what versions there currently exist. Um, so in the end, we chose biogas because it looks as the most feasible technology to invest in. And this is one of the most common examples of a biogas technology. It's called the fixed dome biogas made out of concrete. However, it comes with a limitation. So what we notice is that we see a lot of biogas digesters being deployed, and I'm not going to explain again The details of biogas, I think a lot of biology students here know what it is. It's an ancient technology, it's nothing fancy. However, an issue arises with the current biogas digesters being too expensive. Too expensive, meaning that yes, it's going to be expensive for the farmers to afford it. However, it means that funding and scalability is hampered because of the price. And it's also a time consuming installation in the sense that you need a lot of manpower to set up this concrete underground fixed dome. The more the more pressing concern is that the usability of the biogas digesters. If you have a technology, no matter how great it is, if it's only going to last for a few days, few weeks, few hours, then it's not a technology that's being used. It's not a solution if it's not sustainable in terms of time. So, what we found out was that a lot of the biogas digesters were left unused because of two main reasons. It was too difficult to maintain, meaning that the farmers or the households, the people that the beneficiaries did not have the capacity to maintain it by themselves, and it was their wrong incentives replaced. It's pretty difficult to convince someone to use a technology that requires extra labor if there's no proper incentives. So to illustrate, there was a government program that installed biogas digesters to farmers, and then the biogas digesters were given with a cow. So every farmer received a cow and a digester. In the end, and the wrong incentives were placed because they received cows, they will take care of the cow, not the biogas. The biogas doesn't give profit, right? The biogas gives something, but it's not as fun as the cow, as an illustration. So this is what we want to work on. Biogas is such a good issue, such a good solution, but why is it? Why? How can we address the shortcomings of existing ones? And this is where we start our biogas journey, um, with um, trying to create the most user friendly and most affordable biogas technology. So we try to cut costs as much as possible, and this is where we end up having this biogas digester version made out of PVC, um, cheaper installation costs, faster installation, and most user friendly. Farmers just turn the knob, and then if I can fast forward a bit, this is connected to the kitchen, and this is one of our farmers in Flores Island about to fry some fish. Hopefully, I can show another one here upstage. So, time wise, I have 10 more minutes, so let me move forward. So, just quickly about us, we've installed across Flores and Bali, and we've also written several publications. For those of you who are more interested in scenario writing, we use economic modeling, Cambridge econometrics, also to look into the possibilities of upscaling, etc. I'll skip this over today. And then the most recent publication we have this year is last year was the theory behind frugal eco innovation. So biogas is a frugal innovation and why it works in terms of usability in the rural context and also scalability in the national scale. So let me go back to the basics of what does biogas even produce? Okay, so the biogas digester is the technology. Yeah. So the biogas digester is a technology where you input food waste or common manure and it outputs two things. The biogas, which can be used for cooking, and the bioslurry, the organic fertilizer. In turn, saves money from reducing cost of buying LPG or buying fertilizers, cleaner air from reduced indoor house pollution, and reduced labor of gathering fuel wood. And so this is a picture, one of the pictures of our biogas digester. There will be more later. So on one hand, we have this gas outlet, which is connected to a stove in the kitchen, which produces biogas. And this, in the end over here is an outlet pipe, which outputs a bioslurry. And this is the organic fertilizer that can be immediately used. And this is something that is can also work as a natural pesticide. There are many benefits to the bioslurry. And this is something that is very important nowadays because fertilizers are no longer being subsidized. So as ever since the pandemic, a lot of farmers are struggling to get fertilizers because previously it was subsidized, but a lot of the budget allocated for energy for farming is now shifted and reallocated to health because of the current pandemic, and this is why the biogas became such a useful technology. So this is one of the incentives that should be taught or given or delivered when deploying biogas digesters, because in the end, this is for the benefit of the beneficiaries. So this is our design. It's about 1 meter cubic in size, and we have two pipes coming in, inlet and outlet. This is where you fill the biogas with common manure or food waste, and this is where they produce the bioslurry, and it produces about equivalent to 55% of LPG consumption. So it does not fully replace LPG. It also really depends on situation, how much it is being fed, and how many minutes of cooking. It can go from 20 to 1 hour, depending on how much is being filled. So this is some of the examples, pictures, documentation of how it's being fed. With communure, it's most important to mix this one by one with water in a 1-to-1 ratio. And this is how we install it. So it requires just a nice pot for the biogas to lay. So this could be done easily within a day or less than a few hours. So just install it. We have two designs, one top loading, one that we do some slight digging for the pipes to be stable. And this is where, yeah, this is the starting point. Um, we do not, this is where, comparing to the other designs of concrete and fixed stone, we do not require too many manpower to do this installation, meaning that we can install in multiples. And this is part of the reason why again, we shrink the size. We try to make it as user friendly as possible and cheap as possible. I'll explain a bit more in the end. And yeah, again, some more pictures, but I'll show you anyway. So, and this is, I think, one of the more important parts of the presentation that I want to talk about. So now we have the technology itself that you see. Maybe some of you already have many questions. I'll try to answer them later. I want to explain the other parts that come aside from the technical solutions itself. Because we have the biogas technology that I've said existed for thousands of years. And so there must be something else than the technology itself that is making it a good solution. And so this is what this is why I titled the slide this way, and for the long run. So how do we keep it up? How do you keep at it? How do you keep installing digesters? And this is where a lot of initiatives fall short. So the first thing I want to address again, one of the main issues of biogas being too expensive is funding. If you don't have any funding, you cannot install more digesters. If you rely on subsidy, you're relying on the government's money, which is volatile. It fluctuates, and as I said before, a lot of it goes to subsidizing other things. So unless you can prove the government that this is such a economical technology, you need to find other ways of funding. And so this is how we did our crowdfunding in 2018 actually. This is where we tried to gather international support to keep installing biogas digesters, and we raised about $16,000. And this has allowed us to install more biogas without any funding, also from the beneficiaries. What we do not want is the farmers to pay for this technology, because then we're not actually helping them. Then we're kind of making poverty worse. And two, circular business and shared ownership. How do you tie biogas and create it and make it into a simplex story to make it as an additional funding? So this is what we call cross subsidization. So as you know, we help farmers of coffee and chocolate farmers. We purchase their products, and then we sell it at a higher price in an international market. Now, if combining their stories with our activities, we're starting selling more. We're selling at a higher price because we're selling a story. We're selling a story. We keep it transparent. So we try to avoid certification labels such as fair trade. I mean, they're doing good things, but we want transparency. We want to show what we actually do to the farmers, with the farmers, and then with the higher price and the higher value we sell our products. Some of the money, the percentage of that money, we allocate back to the farmers. And this is part of being able to continue our projects as circular business. And then the shared ownership part is that I want to emphasize that nowadays ownership occupies a different nuance and connotation than it did a few centuries back. So a lot of people would think that ownership is such an important thing to do. Ownership is very important. Yeah, I own this technology, I own this and that. However, a lot of governments, a lot of technological initiatives, say deploying solar powered things, say solar power, solar energy is one of the greatest inventions ever. How do they fall flat in the rural villages? Because no one knows how to manage them. And what happens is a lot of governmental projects or international NGOs or whatever, they come to the villages, provide technology, and leave. Goodbye. That is not how it's supposed to work because that does not guarantee long-term usability of the technology. So with the shared ownership, the biogas digesters actually do not fully belong to the farmers. Farmers receive all the benefits for free. They will get the bioslurry, they will get the biogas. We're not charging anything of that, but the biogas digester is still ours. Some of you, if you think this is a bad thing, then I'll invite you to rethink why we do this. We do this because if anything happens to the biogas digester, it's our responsibility. If a biogas digester is broken, it's our responsibility to fix it, to maintain it. This way, farmers keep maintaining it, and they also receive a bit more incentive because we're actually helping out. And so this shared ownership, so we have a bit more percentage of the biogas, is that when it's broken, we can even replace it. We want to make sure that the biogas lasts. So ownership is no longer about, oh, I own this, this is mine. It's about um, longevity. It's about sustainability. Okay, I might be talking too much here. And lastly, I want to talk about the possibilities of connecting biogas to a carbon offset scheme. This topic I can have my own time to talk about this nonstop for an hour, 2 hours a day. So I'll try to keep this brief.
Yeah, okay.
Long story short, the biogas itself is also a greenhouse gas reducing technology. Biogas is both climate change adaptation and mitigation. It's adaptation in the sense that it's a renewable energy that people can feed it with readily available resources such as livestock manure, and then turn that into something useful, and then it builds climate resilience to the crops. It's mitigation because it reduces greenhouse gases, so it's preventing from the exacerbation of climate change. So what we can do with the biogas. Currently, each of our biogas is installed with a flow meter. So this flow meter measures how much gas is being produced. If we can translate this number into a carbon offset unit, say 1 meter cubic gas means a few hundred kilograms of CO2 equivalent, and we can sell this to the carbon offset market, then we can sell real-time data, trustable data, and then this would give even additional income to farmers. And this will further incentivize them to use the biogas digesters because the more they use it, the more gas they produce, the more they can receive income from the carbon offset platform. And so this is one of our biggest projects that we're starting in a few months. And this is something I want to illustrate. This is another method of financing technology so that technology can last long. So I will close this presentation with a bunch of the other overarching picture that the biogas does. The biogas is useful for the beneficiary level, but it's useful for the SDGs. It tackles almost all of them, and also the NDCs, the National Determined Contributions. In Indonesia, we're committed to increasing the renewable energy mix to 26% by 2030. How are we going to do that? We introduce more renewable energy, and biogas can be one of the most promising ones if we install more and more to the 25 million households that need biogas. Then we'll easily achieve that NDCs. So it's part of a national funding too, and this is why we work with policymakers, not against them, to make sure that our activities don't clash. So to close the slide and my presentation, I just want to say a few things about technology and implementation. In Sugarco, we work both as a research and implementation. That's where we take pride in. I think to B Tank. The biogas is a good technology, but it's not enough on its own. The implementation and the strategy of deployment, of facilitation, of policy engagement, of communication to the farmers, of financing, all matters as much as the technology. A solution for a multifaceted problem should be complex. The solution cannot be a linear, one angle, one sided solution. It should come from many angles in synergy to create something meaningful. That's how I'm going to close the presentation. Thank you very much. I'll
All
pass the
right.
mic back to Bundi and then I'll show around the place afterwards. Thank you.
Yep. All right. That was a cool presentation, Fabian. Okay. It is interesting that Suriko is bringing every aspect into link it together as everything in the universe is linked, interconnected. Like you can't get rid of any one of the things. It is interconnected, and then we need to have someone to something to link it back or to make it stronger. Okay. So without further ado, everyone here. Today, as you know, this is the last webinar in this June month, right? So we have prepared something interesting for everyone to get into involved, to interact with us. Number one, we have two ways. Number one is the WhatsApp group we created, and then if you want to interact with us and you have any questions or you have any suggestion or you want to get into our connections, get into click on it and join us. All right, everyone is there. All right. Okay. So now everyone get back to the mood. We are now on the flight going to Indonesia together with Fabian to see to have a room tour for the farmer in the farmer house. Okay, the mic is yours.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, Bundi. I'll start giving a tour. Pak Rudi, Bu, saya kasih lihat keliling ini ya. Nggak apa-apa kan ya? Saya kasih lihat kamu. Okay. So right now we're in the room where the wife does a lot of sewing. There's a sewing kit over there, and I'll go into the kitchen. Hope the video is
Oh,
clear. So this is the kitchen. Some outdoors. There's still a firewood stove over there, as you can see, and we have two other stoves. So this is actually what they call the energy stack. It's common in rural households not to only rely on one stove. And this is the biogas stove. So before I show you how it's connected, before I show you the turn on, nanti dulu aja. Saya mau ngasih dari sana dulu. Nanti saya kasih lagi ya. Okay. I will show you where it is connected. It's connected to this biogas digester. Can you see?
oh yeah,
Okay, there it
beneath
is.
there.
This is
Oh,
it's beneath the drying rack. So this is one of our smaller biogas digesters. We have bigger ones because usually the bigger one we give it to farmers who have cow manure or pig manure. But Barudi here does not own that. Instead, he only has food waste. And so this is a smaller type, solely fed only with food waste. We have a bacteria starter. This is where he inserts the waste mixed with water. There's a bucket already waiting to be filled. And then all the way, yeah. So this is a bunch of food waste, some fruits, some fruit skins, some cucumber, vegetables, and bekas beras. When you wash your rice, I assume you a lot of people, at least you should wash your rice. The water
yeah,
is also added to the mix, so that it's just not wasted. Actually, that water is also good. The starchy water is also good for plants. But yeah, and all the way at the end there, you can see is where the bioslurry comes out. So this is where the organic fertilizers form. So Parudi makes this on the daily. He gets a lot of free fertilizer from this boy from the fermentation process. And you can see there's another red bucket over there. Not bucket. Um, there's only that is
bottle.
the bio the yeah, big bottle for bioslurry. Ever since we gave this biogas digester, Parudi has not bought a single chemical fertilizer, which is not only better for the environment but saves money. So yeah, this is Parudi by the way. This is a farmer. Okay. Mau nyalain kompor?
Boleh,
Oh,
silakan.
you see, so it's connected to this gas, and there you go. This is the gas it produces. Baru ini tadi terakhir pakai
Oh,
kapan?
Pagi,
Pagi.
pagi.
So he only used this morning for cooking, and once it runs out, terima kasih. When it runs out, you just wait for a few more minutes, few more hours, and then it'll start producing again. So yeah, I think that's mainly it. So you saw the biogas, you saw the stove, the house. I'll show a bit more of what's happening also today. There's a lot of corn harvest just today. Ini rencana mau dimasukin
oh,
ke biogas, Pak?
Apanya?
Ini ya?
Enggak bisa, terlalu keras.
Terlalu keras ya?
Terlalu keras.
Heeh.
Terlalu keras kalau jagung terlalu keras.
Bukan jagungnya, ini ya? Apa?
Kulitnya
Kulitnya?
terlalu keras.
Terlalu keras juga ya?
Ini kita kasih kambing.
Oh kita?
Ya.
Oke.
Kasih kambing Pak Man. Itu kan tahinya kan saya ambil.
Oh iya iya.
Kotornya kan saya ambil.
Boleh boleh. So what he was just telling me is, so Parudi he used to be in charge in the village to collect organic waste. So he separates waste at home, and he he probably applies a zero waste lifestyle more than I do. He really makes sure all the organic waste is maximized. So there was also a question that I can just answer immediately as well. Someone asked, should the food waste be separated? Is there a specific type of food waste? This is a good question because yes, you cannot just add everything to the biogas. So one of the biggest things you cannot add to the biogas is something that will take forever to decompose. So things that are heavy, things that are fibrous, too fibrous, might clog the biogas because it'll take more time for the bacteria to digest it. So things like
yes.
seeds, things like thick skins, things that are too fibrous. So like corn, a whole corn, probably wouldn't want to put this in the biogas because it's going to take a while, and may also clog the outlet. But things like fruit skins, things like vegetables, everything else, you can easily put it in, and they'll love it. What about rotten fruits? Better. The smellier, the better. They like it. Bacteria. And so what Parodi told me is instead of all the other food waste that he doesn't have, then he'll give it to his friend's goat, and then just for food. So then basically always maximizing the value of the products. Ada
Cool.
canang Bu? Ada sini ya?
Bekas.
Bekas. Saya mau ngasih lihat aja sih.
Oh,
Oh nggak apa-apa nggak apa-apa.
bisa
Ya.
apa udah itu udah barang kebuang ya kadang-kadang.
Hmm.
Keluar ke sampah.
So then another thing that you cannot put the biogas is anything that will kill a bacteria. So things like chili, things like ginger, I mean, yeah, it's gonna kill the bacteria. So try to limit that. And anything too citrusy. So putting a whole lemon may not be a good idea. Maybe a little bit of lemon skin is okay, but nothing too acidic. So yeah, that's the answer.
Do you need to add in more microorganism to the which is the microbes to maintain the production? Does it like it's just one time for the microorganism it will grow at itself, or you need to come continuously to add or replace the microbes, the bacteria?
It's a very good question. So I'll answer the second question first. In theory, it's only a starter. So meaning that it's only upfront in the beginning that you need microorganism. If you have cow manure, animal manure, cow and pig is the best. Goat or horse is not as ideal. Chicken as well, not ideal. So cow or pig manure, they will have the bacteria itself. So it's a natural bacteria that you don't need to add. In case you don't have that, you can add a bacteria mixture, and yeah, that's I guess an extra microorganism. So in that sense, you only need it once. However, in a case where you do not feed your biogas anymore,
They might
and
die
for
off.
example, it's been a while and nothing's happening, there are high chances you need to add more to reactivate it. Kind of like
Yeah.
think of it like a sourdough starter. You need that yeast to be alive. Feed it with something. If you don't feed it enough anymore, then it's gonna die.
Yes, exactly.
And then the first question, how the biogas being stored? I think you already saw the digester, how it is. It's just laying there. But I'm going to assume you're actually asking, can we extract the biogas and store it somewhere? Which is something that we've studied as well. So this is something that's been done in many other cases. This is how they create bio-CNG. If you don't know what that is, it's also a cool technology up and coming. Bio-CNG, basically a natural LPG. However, with the scale of the biogas, it's very small, so it doesn't produce enough pressure for us to create additional gas and keep it somewhere. It's best to just use it as it is right now. So
Yeah,
it's
probably.
the biogas. Sorry.
Yes, yes. Probably in future, the bigger plant, then
Yeah.
it is possible.
For, for a bigger plant, it's possible. It's just that this is also one of the trade-off of making it smaller and cheaper.
Mm.
We make this biogas just so that it's enough for household usage and not an industrial, right?
Yes, exactly. So now we have a couple more questions. I'll keep it on the screens. We have this Jelani. Can the biogas is inflammable? And what is the disadvantages of biogas? Does it explode easily or it can be manageable?
It's a very famous question. Does it explode? Especially among farmers. When I first explain what this is, they're all scared it's gonna explode. So ignite flames. Yes, the biogas is flammable. We use it for cooking. As long as there are no leakages.
Mm.
That's the biggest risk of a biogas if the design is not created very well. And because we use materials that are off above ground. So the reason why a lot of biogas digesters are below ground is to avoid leakages.
Yeah.
Ours is above ground, meaning that if a kid decided to stab the biogas, then it's done. But this is where we want to protect it. We want to teach the farmers carefully how to take care of it. And at the same time, if your biogas is below ground, it's harder to maintain. So it's a trade-off. You want something easier to maintain, or you want something yeah, so the biggest
Yes.
disadvantage, at least from this design, that I can say is that it's prone to natural disasters. We have had an unfortunate case where we installed it in a rural household that had a landslide, and so automatically the biogas was not um, in a well condition. But that would happen anyway for any other technology, even if it's below ground and a landslide occurs. So that may be
Yes.
something I can think
Every,
about. But it won't explode. Let me put it that way.
I would say every technology is a two-edged knife, double-edged knife. It can be used for good, it can be bad as well. So there's a pros and cons in between of every technology. All right. So let's go. We move on to to the next questions. We have Only here. I would like to ask if the how does Sirico help farmers to maintain the biodigester? Does it you will come to routinely to check it, or you will wait until the farmers to call? Hey, Fabian, we have some issue here. Can you come over and check it out?
Both. So good question. We monitor the biogas through messages mostly, checking in
Mm.
how is it going and everything. And then the case and something's happening, for example, oh yeah, Fabian, there's a leakage, then I'll come right over, we'll figure something out. And in the case that a biogas digester is completely broken because of, for example, the most recent one is that a tree fell on top of it, then we'll find a way to replace it. So yeah, but
Okay.
that's unfortunate cases, right? There are many
Yes.
cases. So yeah, we check up on the quick answer is we don't leave our farmers alone. We try to have a quick check on them
Yeah,
and
that's why they
try
have
to maintain this relationship.
yes, that's why you
Yeah,
have the double ownership, right? That you mentioned in the slide
yeah.
just now. So we have Zaham Hussein to ask the question: how does the anaerobic digester work? Does it just dump in everything and it will works itself, or you need to keep on putting on swerving force or some sort like that, or you just need to throw it in and then they will work it themselves.
Okay. So because specifically the question is also anaerobic, I guess I'll jump into this topic,
Yep.
meaning that in an anaerobic digester, it's basically composting but without oxygen. Yeah. So it's the same as composting. It's a organic recycling process, but it requires bacteria and a bacteria that does not have oxygen, meaning that in the biogas digester design. So let me show you how it looks again. Um, what you have here is two pipes. You have an inlet pipe and an outlet pipe. The pipe goes inside up to this deep, maybe. And so what happens is you have a pipe going in, and by doing this, by filling the digester, you allow no air to flow in if you fill it enough. So the first day is most important because if you don't fill it enough, the anaerobic process won't start. The biogas will only start to happen when you fill it enough so that the pipes are covered in liquid, so that airflow there's no more airflow, and when there's no more airflow, then the biogas digester starts to create it starts these four-step process. The orders on top of my head: hydrolysis, and the last three more that I can't remember on top of my head now. But the last part, methanogenesis, that's where they produce methane gas for cooking. And
Uh,
so the biogas will only work 15 days after there's no more airflow. And this also depends on conditions such as temperature, etc. In a hotter temperature, it will work faster. In a colder climate, it will be slower. And what exactly is being filled? With more pig manure, then you have more nitrogen, which may speed up the process versus, say, if you just have food waste and bacteria. Um, but then there's also a lot of nitrogen in food waste as well. So it just really depends. There are so many variables that can take into account. The most important thing is to feed it with the right things and feed it with enough things. Yeah.
yes, just don't throw in a lot of chili there, then
No,
it will be disaster.
exactly.
Okay, we have another question for Hussein. So, how much does the biogas plant will cost?
Ooh, good question. So, a normal biogas digester can cost up to $1,000 and above, depending on the size. A normal biogas digester, the concrete ones. That's why we try to cut costs, and now our biogas digester costs about $300. So we try to cut it to one third of the cost. So this is, yes, $300 is still pricey. I think we cannot go lower than that because of production costs and other things, but it's good enough for the long run. The way we see its biogas lasting and its usage. So yeah, $300.
All right, and we have questions next. So, the digestant produced by the soil amendment, I think that refers to the bioslurry because
Mm.
the remaining whatever they put in the gas, it will become the biogas. The remaining it will be the bioslurry. So this person is asking what type of bioslurry is that, and then how they use it.
Okay, so actually, you already answered the question a bit as well. So it really depends on the input, right? Because if you
Yes.
input more pig manure versus if you input cow manure and versus if you input food waste, they're all going to have different properties for the bioslurry. The nitrogen content and everything, and also depends on the ratio. So when you feed the digester, we try to feed it with a 1-to-1 ratio of organic waste and water. In some cases, so then it's not just poop there. You make it liquid, also because so it doesn't clog. And some farmers don't follow this rule as precisely, so they add more manure, which can be
Uh,
problematic and which may result into a way stronger slurry. Um, so in this case, if the farmers usually get to see it, and we also teach them if the slurry looks too thick, then please add more water or find a way to dilute it a bit more before plant spraying it to the plants. So you can directly spray to the plants, Parudi over here doesn't even mix it. Gives it to the marigolds, his marigolds, his flowers,
Yeah.
and has other plants. And so far, there's no problem because he knows that they can handle it. And actually, he just reported to me just today. He told me that previously, when he was using chemical fertilizers, the crop itself was blooming pretty well, but the surrounding grass was turning yellow. And with this bioslurry, it's still green. So I was pretty happy to hear that.
Yeah,
So
that is a good news.
that's a good news. It is. It
Yes.
is because I mean, I'm not going to here to sugarcoat everything. We have had a farmer who sprayed bioslurry to the crop, and he said that the taste was different. And we found out that yeah, his he was using pig manure, and the pig manure he didn't dilute it as much with water, so it was really strong directly to the plant. And so we create guidelines as well for how to use the slurry appropriately because in the end it's about doses, right?
Yes, it's about the balance between each other, between the ratio. That is the most important thing. Okay, so I think due to the time constraints, I will only pick the last questions, and then the remaining question will be our colleague will be compound it, and then get the answer from Fabian's afterwards, and then we will answer it using our answer in the comment sections. So the last questions I think will be this from Kame. How long does it take the digest the food to be digested to produce the biogas? Does it 1 day, 2 days, or it just yeah the durations?
This is a good question because if you think about when you start the biogas, it takes 15 full days before gas starts being produced. But this is when we start, right? So actually, this is a good question that I need to look into. Say, for example, now we already have a biogas digester that's functioning, meaning that it's already active. When
Yeah.
we enter it with food waste, how long does it take for it to digest? Would be less than a few days. I guess it would be less than a few days for it to be digested and then create into gas. Because
Yes.
now Parudi fills it every other day to produce gas, and he can use gas pretty much every day, twice a day. Um,
I think it may need some incubation periods for the bacteria to get
yeah,
active. Yeah, etc.
but once the bacteria is active, I think it wouldn't take 2 weeks. This is something I cannot know because I cannot see where the food waste goes. All I know
Yes,
is
yes.
so far the bioslurry, the food waste is always already dissolved, and so yeah, I
All right.
think uh,
Good.
I think
I
that's the answer.
think yeah. So now it comes to the very end of our webinar. Okay. So the remaining question, don't worry, we will answer it right afterwards, probably today or tomorrow or of these few days. All right. So yeah, for those who haven't joined our WhatsApp group, please join our WhatsApp group in between of MYBIOSA and also Surico team. In the group, we'll be sharing AR files for those iPhone user. You can use the AR file to see how big and what is the size of the biodigester. It is not like a plant, the whole plant of a biodigester that bigger than any house. It is a huge one. No, it is relatively convenient and friendly for the farmer. It is meant for the farmer. Okay, that's all for the time we have for today. Thank you very much for the sharing section. It was an insightful and fruitful with Fabians. All right, so it was enlightened to learn more about the technological view on the biogas and also to know more about Surico company. Okay, so for those who have joined late or missed this session, you can watch the edited video on our MyBiosa YouTube channel after this. Okay, we would like to hear feedback, so fill in the feedback form that we have in the comment section. We would like to thank all our audience for this continuous support and interest in this series. We hope to continue bringing to you the quality, knowledge, and also the content. Stay tuned to our Stay tuned for our upcoming programs and events by liking and following our social media on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. Search for my Malaysia Biotechnology Students Associations, or MYBIOSA. That's my BIOSA. Thanks again for joining us and stay tuned, everyone. So, bye.